Hi, my name is Bronya Oldfield. I'm a member of the LGBT network at Vodafone, and I work for Vodafone Group Enterprise Technology in the IoT delivery team. Creating a diverse and inclusive culture is important at Vodafone. It's the right thing to do, and it's important that we all support and respect the employees, everybody who works at Vodafone. I'd like to introduce Noor Shaker, a service manager from the Global Data Center Operations and Applications team, and her previous manager, Gerard Conway, who is currently program lead for the Big Data project based in Ireland. Okay, Noor, could I ask you a personal question? Why did you transition?
Well, that's a pretty personal question, but I'd rather answer it in a slightly different way. So gender is basically something that's intrinsic, that's engraved in each and every one of us in the brain while we are in the womb. When there's a disconnect between the gender and the sex, a case or a condition is called gender dysphoria, also known as gender identity disorder. This causes a massive distress for the person who's going through this. Another reason would be if someone is born with anatomy or reproductive organs that does not conform to either male or female, then this falls back again to the gender thing, because gender, again, is something very intrinsic within the personal identity.
And Gerard, how did Noor go about approaching you when she came to you about transitioning?
Well, for me, diversity and inclusion has always been a very important part of our Vodafone values. Those values instilled in me a very deep sense that diversity was something to be understood and celebrated. I first became aware of Noor's transition before Noor approached me. I felt it was very important to give Noor the space to start her transition, and was very supportive when she requested a first one-to-one with me. I was in contact with Noor's local manager in Egypt at the time, Rami, and was in discussion that he was giving her the correct local support and guidance to help her on her transition. When we had our first one-to-one, Noor could then inform me of her decision to transition, and then we could decide the best options to help make Noor's transition a success. I did feel it was important to help Noor because we had worked together for several years, and we had gone through some very difficult projects together. I was aware that Noor's personal situation was a bit more challenging than others, and she did need some support to ensure that her life was no longer in danger and she could complete her transition successfully.
Noor, how did you find this experience? What worked for you?
This was one hell of an experience, filled with ups and downs, positives and negatives, but by far the positives outweighed the negatives. And this is thanks to everyone's support in my team, Gerard, Rami, Salah, Torben, everyone I worked with. They were very respectful, very supportive, and they talked to me instead of talking about me, which is, I believe, very important for everyone that's going through transition, to cut the gossips and everything. Just be open and supportive. I believe this worked really well.
Oh, that's great. That's a great message as well. Just curious, were there any particular challenges that you'd like to highlight that you came across that made it more difficult, perhaps, than it should have been for Noor transitioning?
Well, the key challenges that I think we had to address as we were in the discussion were really around Noor's communication with the wider team and making sure that team could accept Noor's decision. So there was a lot of training and information that I did with the team in the background, communicating with them on how they felt about Noor's transition, and making sure that they were aware that this was Noor's decision, and we had to respect that decision and make sure that she could transition in as smooth a way as possible. There were some of the technical challenges around her name change, which we worked out with her alias in her email, and making sure that the wider team, the business organisation that we're also working with, were aware about it, and I communicated quite directly with a lot of them and make sure that all is comfortable as possible for Noor.
Well, thank you, Gerard. It sounds like it was a very good investment of time, but also you supported your team as well as Noor in a very good way.
Yeah, no, I think the key challenge for everyone is to really make sure that it's an environment that you're creating for everyone, that it's an accepted environment, people are aware. We're dealing with a global organisation with people from many different backgrounds, and they will all accept that decision in their own way due to where their background came from. So you have to be respectful of those people as well, make sure that they're involved and informed, and then obviously that they're following the Vodafone guidelines. But that's what's key. Working for Vodafone, we have guidelines how we expect to behave, and our employees are expected to behave as well, and they should be aware of that at all times.
What message would you give to other managers who are dealing with a situation or have an employee who wishes to transition or even your own other team members?
Communication, information, patience and openness is a very important message for anyone that's trying to manage a person that's going through a transition. It's very important to give that person the time and space they need in order to find their own path and communicate when they're ready to the wider team and to the rest of their colleagues. Giving the team the information, having one-to-ones with them, allowing them to accept the decision that's being made by the person in transition is very important and allows them to follow the Vodafone guidelines.
That's great, thank you. And Nora, the same question to you. What message would you give to other Vodafone colleagues and employees?
I would actually deliver 3 messages. The first one is for someone who is considering going through transition. It's okay to be you. You are who you are. If you need help or support, feel free to reach out to anyone that can give you this guidance and support. This is crucial, and be open to questions. If someone comes and asks you about something, feel free to talk about it, or discreetly not answer it. The other message is for the colleagues of someone who's going through transition or has gone through transition. Unconditional acceptance is something very valuable. Being able to respect and work clearly with no problems, with no prejudice whatsoever with anyone is a very important thing that we all strive to have. For managers, I would say that gender transition is not something that's being taken lightly. So a person that has decided to go through transition has definitely thought it through very well. And for you as a manager, then your support is a crucial part of the job, because they spend most of their day at work, in the workplace. So it's very important that they feel accepted and supporting throughout this environment. And this is something that I would like to highlight to everyone. Going through gender transition is a very difficult decision. It's a very difficult journey. And the person going through it is going through a lot. So being mindful and being respectful and accepting is very important for everyone.
Thank you, Nora. Vodafone is doing a lot of work around customer experience. Is there any particular piece of advice that you would give somebody who's working in the contact center environment or in a retail environment as to how to interact or how best to interact with transgender customers of Vodafone?
The thing I would like to say is try not to guess someone's gender by the voice if you're talking on the phone, or if you think that there's some difference between what you're seeing and and the name that it's on the paper or on the screen, then do not try to guess someone's gender. Do not jump to saying Miss or Mr. or anything. You can use gender neutral pronouns. You can use, you can ask what title you would like, or what title you would like to have, or what title are you having. This is very important to make sure that everyone is feeling comfortable and open about themselves.
Thank you. And anything in particular, sorry, Nora, coming back to you, anything in particular about a retail environment when somebody walks into the shop?
Again, try not to use gender specific things if you feel confused, and by all means ask. If you have something, just ask.
Just ask that person what they would prefer and how they prefer to be referred to. Thank you, Noor and Gerard, for sharing your experiences. I personally believe that the best way to understand what being transgender is like is to talk with people who are transitioning and who are transgender, and most of all, listen. You know, we have a lot to do to educate ourselves in terms of people in this situation, and to make sure that their lives are better, especially at work, as well as when they interact with Vodafone as a customer. If you'd like to find more information about this, the Vodafone LGBT and Friends Network has put together a transgender toolkit, a transgender guide. We also have a Facebook group, a Yammer group, and we have an email distribution list if people are not comfortable being out in the workplace, which is quite a common experience. We also have a confidential support line should anybody have any queries that they would like to deal with separately. So thank you for your time watching this, and thank you again.